Namaskar and good evening, everyone. This is Gopal Krishna, and I welcome you to Reinventing Schools webinar series. This is the second webinar of the ninth week. As parents and educators, we always want to keep the young minds happy, learning, laughing, active, and calm. Is that really important? And are we doing enough? What exactly is the payoff of raising an emotionally healthy child? Why and how should we care? The topic of today's webinar is a place for emotional well-being in academic curricula. As I'm very much excited to introduce our panelists, I want to share that I've joined this conversation with my happy drink, and that's a cup of chai. I believe that a cup of chai can make everything go better. Before we start discussing on the topic, let's ask our panelists about their favorite hot beverage. Are they a coffee person or a garma garam chai lover? Our first panelist is Lata Vaidyanathan ma'am, Director, Gyan Bharati School, Delhi. A veteran educationist, she spearheaded burden-free education. She is a practitioner of multiple intelligence approach to learning. A respected name in the field of education, both in India and abroad. Welcome, Lata ma'am. Please tell us what is brewing in your cup and what makes it special. Lata ma'am, if you can unmute the mic.
Yeah. What's brewing in Namaste to all present, and what's really brewing in my cup are the overflows from everybody else's cup, tons of happiness and a lot of joy inside. I wish I could only show you how I can see everyone's face in it. And then when it gets covered, I can see children. So it's brewing happiness for children.
Lovely. Thank you so much, ma'am. With this, we move to our next panelist, Amita Saxena, ma'am, Principal, Delhi Public School, Sushant Lok, Gurugram. Ma'am has a rich experience of 24 years in school education, a firm believer of holistic development and education beyond books. Welcome, ma'am. What is your happy drink?
My happy drink is tea, and I love to have tea, and I'm having a tea right in my hand.
Great. Thank you so much, ma'am. You know, we cannot buy happiness, but we can buy tea. And it is one and the same.
Absolutely.
So with this, we move to our next panelist, Asha Nair, ma'am. She's the principal of Delhi Public School, Rao, Indore.
Good evening. I'm here with a cup of coffee, a cup of black, strong coffee to keep my connected. Thank you.
Darker, bitter, 0 calories.
Yes.
Great. So ma'am has an experience of 22 years in the field of education. Ma'am believes that good grades and high-level scores are not enough. Kids need to be thinkers to solve problems and tackle issues in lives. With this, we move to our next panelist, Rashmi Raj ma'am. She's the principal of DAV Public School, Delhi. A dynamic and versatile personality with over 28 years of experience. Ma'am is well versed with modern pedagogy and educational practices. Welcome, ma'am. Please tell us what is the secret drink in your cup today?
Thank you for that wonderful welcome. I have black tea with a dash of lemon, which refreshes me. And that's how I love meeting my children. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Great. Now we move to our next panelist, Rajkumar Sharma, sir, principal of Delhi Public School, Jind, Haryana, a well-known name in the field of education. From last 29 years, sir is giving his services to inculcate moral values in the young generation for the betterment of the society. Welcome, sir. Please tell us, it's tea or coffee?
Thank you, dear. It is a lemon tea only.
Great. Lovely, sir. Thank you. Our next panelist is Rita Singh, ma'am, Director, Indrapuram Group of Institution. Ma'am is an educationist, advisor, and consultant on school systems. For this National Awardee of CBSE Teachers Award 2019, people say that her positive energy starts from the school gate itself. Which better person could we have with us to discuss emotional well-being? Welcome, Rita ma'am. Please tell us what is there in your cup and what makes it special.
Normally, adrak ki chai is what gets me going, but I'm a little mindful of the healthy ways nowadays. So, milk in my glass. Thank you.
Oh, that's great. Let us move to our next panelist, Sanjay Jairaj, sir, the Dean, at Pravasi International Academy, Nasik. After contributing more than 2 decades in corporate sector and 1 decade at leadership positions in institutes of higher learning, Sir is enthusiastically creating future leaders at FIA, Nasik, who are happy, cultured, educated, and can contribute in the progression of global society. Welcome, Sanjay sir. Please tell us what is your energy drink. Sanjay sir, if you can please unmute.
For me, it is the emotional coffee. It is not only the coffee, it is the coffee with a lot of emotions, the positive emotions you can say, which bring the smiles and the twinkling eyes in the children. So let's cheers for that. Good.
Great, sir. Thank you. Our next panelist is Sunanda Sandeep ma'am, Principal MYP Pathway School, Noida. A visionary, dynamic and well proficient in modern trends in education. She is a well-read and widely traveled with a proven track record of successfully managing and guiding academic, co-curricular and extracurricular activities. Welcome, Sunanda ma'am. Please tell us what is your energy drink. Sunanda ma'am, if you can unmute yourself, please.
Thank you, Mr. Gopal. Great to be here with all eminent panelists and talking to everybody here. My energy drink is my water, which is filled, but something which gives me real energy is the challenges which we are put in today. And it really gets me to, it's energized to learn new things, and which COVID has put us all into. And it's been amazing to see how all educators have risen to the occasion and have worked so beautifully across the world. I would say not only in India, but across the world they have taken up. So that's for me is really, really energetic to see that happening. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you. I also believe that educators, teachers are working as frontline warriors in the COVID times. If our audience also believes so, please write in yes in the chat box. Audience, if you feel that teachers are working as frontline warriors in this COVID situation, please write in the chat box. Wow, lovely. I can see a lot of people writing yes there. Great. Thank you so much. Before we move further, I also want to know about what is the favorite hot beverage of our audience. For this, we will have a quick poll on our screens and we'll have 30 seconds time to answer the question. I also request the panelists to answer this question, this poll. Sunanda ma'am, I would want to know from you, what is your preferred high tea time? 4:30, 4:35 or what it is?
5:30 to 6.
5:30 to 6. Great. Lovely.
Gopal, my timings are not mentioned in your scale. It's normally 2 at night.
Okay. So we'll make a note of it, sir.
Suitable for the few people, but there are few people like me also working lot. So for us, it is normally 2 a.m. when we go for a cup of coffee.
That's nice. We'll make a note of it, sir. Thank you so much. And it is really inspiring. With this, I would want to know from Amita Saxena, ma'am. Ma'am, what do you prefer drinking during high tea? Given a choice.
I have my classic tea in the evening, and that too when I return from school, somewhere around 5 p.m.
Lovely. That's nice. So, Asha, ma'am, where do you enjoy a high tea? At school or at home? Ma'am, if you can, yeah.
Yeah, at school, because mine is a day boarding school. So my students leave only post 4 o'clock. So by 5, I am at school only. So I enjoy my black coffee at school. This is the last drink I have at school, and then I start moving.
Nice, nice. And what about you, Lata ma'am? Where do you enjoy a high tea?
Unmute.
Ma'am, if you can unmute your... Lata ma'am, please unmute.
Yeah, at home, because irrespective of the time I come back, that is the time I like to sit down with my cup of tea and think of the whole day and say, okay, this is home time. So it is very relaxing to get back home. You know, I have always said that when you rise in the morning, the intent to reach your place of work, and when you retire for the day, the intent to reach your home back. Both these are very healthy in your life. It's important to respect both these spaces because they are your elixir for life.
Great, lovely.
So
Thank you so much, ma'am. So let us have the results now, what our audience have to say. Can we have the results, please? Nice. So 50% people say 5 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. and 59% people say classic tea. And 95% people say that they enjoy their high tea at school. Great. Lovely. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, all the audience. Now, I request the audience, please keep writing your questions in the Q&A box, as we will be having a Q&A session towards the end of the program. Today, we will also be taking some live questions from the audience. Now, I request all the panelists to share their thoughts and opinions in 5 minutes. We also have a buzzer to remind the panelists that 5 minutes are over. Hope that's going to be helpful. Now, I request Lata ma'am to kickstart the conversation. Over to you, Lata ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Pleasure being here. Namaste to all present. You know, on the 24th of March, the world shut down for all of us here in this country. Less than 1 gram of a virus can disrupt the whole world. The 2 world wars before us and the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the 44 grams of material, nuclear material, didn't do so much harm as this less than 1 gram of material that upset the whole world. And when we talk of upsetting the world, and when life seems to have come to a standstill, the malls closed down, the travel industry closed down, eateries closed down, all joints closed down, even schools closed down. But learning didn't stop, because like every other warrior who's taking care of all that needs to be done, here are the teachers who are taking care of the minds of everybody. They somehow just got into the game. 100% of them responded. I'm still not sure that all of us are doing what needs to be done in order to say that to understand the difference between offline, online, or e-learning versus digital learning. There is a whole lot of understanding around it. But having said that, if there has to be the emotional well-being of everything that the academics have to offer, because you need the person before his or her responses. And to have the complete person there, you need to be sure that their emotional well-being is in place. So today, in the next few minutes that I like to address, I think I will be focusing more on what is the totality or the centrality of our education. Education for life and education for living. You know, it's very interesting that even the World Health Organization, in its definition for mental health, said a state of well-being in which every individual realizes his or her own potential, can cope with the normal stress of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to her or his community. The goal for education was set by them, and this was the definition of mental health that was required to make this happen. You know, look around us, even today, whether it is provoked by the current situation where people are finding themselves locked in spaces, where there is a feeling of being caged. I think the most important thing for us to understand is how the children are responding to this. They have their families, they are within their homes, they are away from their friends, they are not able to reach out except through connectivities or communication devices. While all that is facilitating their life, thankfully, better than what probably we would have had 50 years back or in times gone by where there were equally distressing situations over centuries, today we see for ourselves that it is still not the best thing. And you know, the WHO has also revealed that, of course, forget about the fact that there is equity and access is an issue, but besides that, even those that are having it, there is more than 50%, there is so much of emotional distress within the home that we need to question whether that is the right place, right emotional well-being space for children to learn. And this academic curricula has to be then dispensed in these environments. Also, let's think about the reports that we are reading, the number of suicides, even in adults, and we have heard the most distressing ones in recent times. And then we are hearing of the number of divorces going up. We are hearing of child abuse, which has gone up by 56%. That is the report coming from NCPCR. There are reports of abuse to the extent that the family systems are breaking down. There is so much of stress within the house because the coping responses of each one of us within the home situations, the distress of the systems through which we need to work, the amount of stress on each one of these systems to dispense with their daily duties, the sharing, the whole, there are some of these responses we have never thought of. Like sometimes we say, how well have you been doing? I've always stood first in my class. I don't know what it is to fail. So, and if those are some of the things that we have lived with all our lives, and if that is what is mistakenly seen as success, then I think here is time to pause and think of what happens if we are not emotionally well balanced during the times which are so difficult. And therefore, if the academic curricula, if the entire system has to go on as if nothing really has happened, and just that there is a change of medium. And even when we say change of medium, friends, it's my very clear belief that, the difference is almost as stark as between a film and theater. The medium is different, the content is same. So we have to think through all this to see what is it. And then when in trouble, of course, we try and reach out to all those supporting structures, be it the counselors, be it the, see what the children are not doing. The children are not going through and responding to environment, the ecosystems where they can feel the sky, the earth, the warmth, the freshness. They're all clued up inside. And much as we say that we can do yoga, we can do ball games, we can do independent games, we can do mind games, we can do a whole lot of games, yes, but the stretch and what they learn on the field is really not there. So, and then we say that crucially the resilience factors are not, I want to explain this, are not the domains of only psychologists or psychiatrists or counselors. They are, in fact, when we talk of academic curricula, let me reinforce the fact that this is the hidden curriculum of every school. This emotional and complete being of the person is the hidden curriculum of the school. Think of the child, he comes out of the school, he comes to school and then interacts with his peers, with his teachers, adults and others who are outside his home domains. Someone who will not give up on them, someone who will show faith in them, someone who will believe in his goodness and help him to aspire. So I would think that a school's success, dear friends, will come from the centrality of just this thought that the emotional well-being is the most important thing, and let us see how we can tweak our systems around to think of the play that is contained in the lives of children. And then let's hope there won't be any more boys' locker room. Let's hope that there won't be more distress. Let's all be those warriors who can reduce trauma. Let us be people who will actually make sure that the educators have given a lot more to generate leadership, to build a collaborative atmosphere, to build resilience amidst adversity, provide confidence so that these can seek for help, have a safe environment, and also make sure that there's a positive self-regard. One can go on like this because somewhere someone has taken away that adventure in me, that play space away from me. And like they say proverbially, the tiger is supposed to be the king of the jungle. And today it is listed as one of the endangered species within its environment. So with this, I want to really now request, I think the first one to go on this is Amita Saxena ma'am from DPS Sushantlo. And can I really ask you to bring in the focus on MindSpark, that mind sports that can really impact the happiness quotient of our children. Amita.
Okay, ma'am. So, very interesting topic that we are discussing today, ma'am, and my esteemed panelists today. I'm sure everyone agrees that good health is vital to warranting that students maximize their educational opportunities. To maintain good health, good nutrition is required, physical activities are required, and they seem to be imperative so as to develop proper learning skills in students. But this is not sufficient. Their emotional well being is also important. So here comes the mind sport. Is it important to also exercise the mind, to also exercise the emotions, and especially during these COVID times? There has been an explosion of interest, policy making, academic research, and program development around the concepts of emotional well being globally these days. Youngsters develop cognitive skills and attitudes that should be maintained lifelong to maintain their health and happiness. If their school environments are good, I believe that this can be achieved. A good mental health and well being is crucial to flourish and be resilient to life's setbacks. Often, like Lata ma'am has just mentioned, children are focused on achieving. They have a target to achieve and they know how to deal with success, but they don't know how to deal with failures. So, that is what needs to be focused on. A strong connection exists between social and emotional well-being and learning. So school behavior, academic performance, and SEL, they should be all together. And they have to be kept into focus by schools. And health, like I had mentioned earlier, health impacts educational environment and attainment. And evidence shows that it is vice versa also true. Education often leads to better health. You know, when we talk about if you are healthy, you will perform better in education. But when you are educated, you will be healthy because you know about it. That is also something that needs to be focused on. So, since evidence has shown that education often leads to better health and career outcomes, better jobs, higher income earnings, and better access to resources that reinforce health. So, we have to, as schools, focus on and bring our academic curriculum towards that area, which is already being done, but I believe lots can still be done. What is actually meant by emotional well-being? That is a question which has a bewildering array of terms and labels to describe the field of emotional literacy, emotional intelligence, positive mental health, emotional well-being, and so on and so forth. It includes the ability to, I think it definitely includes the ability to understand, express, and manage our own emotions and respond to the other's emotions in a way that is helpful to ourselves and others. So, when we talk about emotional well being, emotional awareness offers an opportunity to children to discuss their feelings, to discuss their thoughts, and convey their attitudes and views to everyone around them. So, e-well-being, I would say, increases students' confidence, communication skills, and problem-solving skills, as it gives pupils an opportunity to discuss how they feel about different things. It makes them more capable of explaining the barriers to their learning, which is very important. Yeah, if they can identify, if there is an identity and the children have identified, I'm not able to do A thing because B is happening or B is affecting my learning. That means that they can access their learning. That means they are at par with their self. And I would say there are few topics that should be kept into the curriculum and in a very focused manner, which would cover school as a community, the entire school as a community, to help in emotional well-being of each component of the school. And then it could be what makes me as an individual special, or how I can be a responsible citizen in the world. Then diversity, which community I belong to, and yet I am comfortable in this setup. My lifestyle, whether it is healthy or not, and the social skills. Well, lifestyle, a healthy lifestyle and social skills, I would say, often depend on outdoors and exercising of mind and the body. And to also bring into the foray the importance of teachers. Often teachers don't know how to deal with this kind of a problem or challenge, although we have learned from our own experience that we can identify, but we can't label, or teachers can't bring out the terminology, which is only a medical expert's area. So teachers area would be to bring it into the notice of the parents, I would say. Thank you, everyone.
So I think the next speaker, thank you, Amita.
Thank
The next one to go on is Asha. And now we request Asha to speak on the complete readiness for the emotional well-being within the school systems.
Thank you, Lata ma'am, and good evening to all the panelists and the attendees of this meeting. Actually, today we are discussing on one of the topic which requires to be addressed with urgency. Today, even being as an academicians, we are not discussing our role in enriching the academic acumen of the pupils who come to us, but the stress is on emotional well-being. Why is it suddenly our responsibility? What happened to the parents being responsible to the happiness of their own child? To find a place of emotional well-being in academic curriculum, and as an educator, I feel both the urgency and a direct responsibility towards becoming the medium, the flag bearer for the purpose. Because more than 50% of India's population is below the age of 25. And of this whole lot, 243 million children are between the age of 10 and 19. Yes, specifically the age group whom we are dealing with. So this new normal has paved a way to shift our paradigm from being an educationist to a counselor and now to a wellness facilitator. A research conducted on suicides in India has revealed that in addition to the challenges of learning and achieving, in our country, young children face a lot of unhappiness. I quote, unhappy situations at home, with peers, in school, etc. These situations remains unaddressed, and slowly they give space to what is known as undefined stress. The sources are family disturbances, peer conflicts, socio-cultural components, and vulnerabilities to physical and mental health risk factors. And what really hurts is India is among the world's least happy nations at 133 among the 155 countries in the global ranking in the Global Happiness Report submitted in 2018. Here I would like to state about my school, as ma'am has said, it is readiness and fitness all together. This school from where I am coming, that is Delhi Public School Rao, this school is built with its motto to create happy learners. And what we have created here is every day in our curriculum, we have fixed a specific time as known as me time. And every day the child experiences that activities which is of his liking and brings the world of happiness. This helps children to be themselves without being judged. Therefore, today as we talk about syllabus, we should be talking about playtime, me time. Now, as ma'am has said, many platforms are deliberating on this emotional and social well-being of the children. And it is imperative that we take the onus of the emotional well-being of children sent to us for educating. Stress can simply be defined as having to do something which I don't want to do, or which either I feel I would not be able to do, or having a feeling that the whole idea is born, I'm being forced to do. And the simplest analogy for this is giving them homework, asking them to complete their notebook, make question answers and come out. Then they will come out with hundreds and thousands of excuses. Instead, you give them a drama, script of drama, ask them to write some comparing, or give them an activity of their interest. They will spend hours in doing it without even being tired. So we can suggest our children nowadays with this COVID-19 situation, they should have a better circadian rhythm and an imagination to let go of by reading a book, walk with a pet, or having to do some exercises which could help them to give them a strong physical as well as mental strength. We need to remember that emotion is not a destination. Instead, it's a process. It's about how you drive, not where you are going. As a facilitator or a teacher, we need to realize the point. Here, it isn't about the volume of work. It is about creating interest, a motivation that makes the learner want to do it, assigning it in a way that leads to learning a sense of achievement and fulfillment. Immediately, the stress turns into a passion and it becomes the driving force for the person to go and get it. And that becomes the happiness coefficient for the child. So for me, working hard for something we don't care about is stress. But working hard for something really I love becomes the passion. And nobody ever gets tired of doing what they love doing. So here I would like to conclude by saying happiness is when what you say, what you think, what you say, and what you do all lies in harmony, as it was rightly quoted by our father of nations, Sri Mahatma Gandhi.
So thank you, Asha. It's been wonderful to hear that if our work and if our work area is the same that you love, clearly we are not working, we are just working happily. So happiness is the most important thing. And I want to now move on to Mr. Rajkumar. Yeah?
Ma'am, with your permission, we would want to stop here for a quick poll.
Oh, please do. Sorry, please do.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. So can we have the next poll here on our screen, please? So the question is, do we believe that de-stressing activities should be added in every day's timetable? Rita ma'am, what do you say? Yes, no, or what? Okay. Sanjay sir, what do you say? What's your answer for this?
See, it's not only about the timetable, it should be inculcated in the daily life. Timetable is just one part of the life. So don't think that once we are as a teacher or the students, it should be only in the timetable right from the morning when the child wakes up or any individual wakes up until the time they go to the bed. It should be in habit. So timetable is just one part of that. Definitely it should be included in a timetable if it's possible.
Great, great. Thank you, sir. Sunanda ma'am, what do you have to say?
So I agree with Dr. Sanjay Jairath. It has to be integrated when we're talking into the curricula. While teaching, how are we teaching it to make it more fun, for our children to see their successes? These are de-stressful activities, which should be a part.
I agree to what Sudha has to say.
Yeah.
Great, great. Thank you, ma'am. Okay. So can we have the results, please? Lovely. So we and the attendees are on the same page. Let us now move ahead. Lata ma'am, over to you, please.
Yeah, thank you. So I think the next speaker is Rajkumar Sharma sir. And I think now we move on to a little bit of a shift in all that we have heard. It's so important, understanding what is emotional well-being. We have understood how, I mean, there's a lot of happiness that needs to come in. If a child is happy, he will respond, he will learn. So let us now maybe just move a little focus on understanding how when there is readiness, fitness, and focus, there is improved learning.
Thank you, ma'am. I think I'm agree with Mrs. Asha. The happiness factor is going to be reduced. I think one question, one teacher asked in the class to the child, what do you want to be? The child told, I want to be happy. Again, the teacher asked, what do you want to be? The child again replied, I want to be happy. The teacher told, you're not getting my question. The child replied, ma'am, I think you're not getting what the life is. Actually, we have to understand from here what the life is there. Why you can say the cafe coffee. Recently, I think one more you can say the example of the suicide. These are coming. Why you can say such type of things when we can say we go with the questions, this is favoritism or nepotism, so many you can things are going to be coming to existence. And you can say at the mature also, they used to break down. It means where the problem is there. Where is the problem? I think the Education Act 2002, under section you can say 75, it is for you can say all these schools, they are supposed to provide safe and protective environment to the kids. I think in that safe and protective environment, somewhere I think we are going to be missed. Yes, the child should be feel happy, feel secure, feel safe. So it means the rise, the resilience in school environment, that is must. What is the reason this is not coming out? Because most of, I think we are working on the IQ factor. That is, you can say the intelligence quotient we are working. The kids there, you can say bombarded with the informations, with the knowledge, and the child is saturated. Because the system of education is like that. If you're having more knowledge, you are supposed to crack the exam. And you are supposed to go for IIT, PMT, whatever you can say the AIMS, or you can say other, you can say JEE, so many you can say the NDA, you are supposed to crack that one. But where you can say that factor, the happiness factor is going to be lost. So it means most of the work on the cognitive skill is there. And the non-cognitive skills, I think the work is not there. I think the Nobel laureate, James Heckman, he has written, if we invest in the early childhood on, you can say the non-cognitive, you can say skills, the results will come, you can say better, you can say in the life. So I think we are not investing, especially in the pre-primary one. There you can say, I think that is more, I think, required, because what type of culture is there, the children, they are supposed to put, you can say, finger on the lips, because they're not supposed to allow it, because they're not supposed to make noise. So ultimately, what is there? From the childhood in education system, I think the structured curriculum is required for the teachers. They are supposed to work on the non-cognitive skills, where the motivation is missing, where the interpersonal, I think, interaction is missing, where I think the integrity part is going to be missing. If these things are going to be taken care from, you can say, the early childhood, so I think we have to think on that one, what the meaning of education is there. The meaning of actually education is what? To make the child happy in life. Then only he is successful one. Successful, it cannot be measured by, you can say, money. It cannot be measured by, you can say, the designation, or you can say, I think the other wealth, or you can say other things. It should be measured how much the person, you can say, is happy, you can say, contented in his life. That's why I think in this lockdown, we realize it. The number of, you can say, which one, the domestic violence increases. The suicidal cases are going to be increased, because no, we have to live together. The nature has given opportunity to, I think, to sit together. But ultimately, we are not ready for that, because we are not prepared for that, because we are not, you can say, taught in that way. We are not, I think, prepared in that way. So ultimately, what is the logic for that? The school has to work on the social quotient. The school has to work on which one, the spiritual quotient. The school has to work on, you can say, the adversity quotient. Then the children, they will be, you can say, mentally mature. And it will come only, you can say, when the school has to have a structured curriculum. And in that one, I think all these things are going to be included. That's why it is not only academic. Academic is one part. Academic includes, you can say, the games and sports and the co-curricular activities. When this combined, it makes, you can say, complete education. Other education is partial one. That's why if you want really, you can, the child should be happy. And such type of things in society should not increase. So I think we are supposed to inculcate these, you can say, non-cognitive, you can say, skills, and other, you can say, part, you can say, games and sports, make mandatory the life skills, because CBSE is telling life skills are required. But what is the weightage of that? In syllabus, the weightage is not there. Grades are there. Nobody is going to have value for that. It means unless you will not, you can say, give the weightage, you can say, in that report card, I think these will remain on the paper, and we are supposed to go and fill, you can say, papers, and we'll say, yes, life skills are going on. The child, you can say, is fully, you can say, fine, everything is perfectly fine, and education doing his job. But actually, we have to change, restructure, think on that one. We are supposed to give some weightage. Thank you very much. Might be, you can say, the time is going to be over. Later on, you can say, I think we'll speak more. Thank you very much. I think, ma'am, your voice
Lata
is
ma'am, your mic, please.
your mic up.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Sharma. I think that was well said. It's so important to understand that, you know, the co-scholastics, it's not, thank God we moved away from extra to co, but co to integration is what we are looking at. Every subject to be taught in an integrated way. The entire process must flow through the level of contentment and also through the levels of play contained in which brings about joyful education. The key has to be burden-free and joyful education. Now I request the next speaker, Rashmi Raj Biswal, ma'am from DAV Pushpanjali, to really talk about the integration of play of the wheel into play of the minds. So one being as concrete and as other being as abstract, but also as we rightly said, how do we dovetail both into each?
Right. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you, Roxford, for this opportunity. One warm welcome to all the panelists and also to the attendees. Being a part of DAV, we are all in a state of shock these days because of the death of Illuminus, and that also at a young age, and such a promising actor. And it has set us thinking that emotional well-being is certainly one of the most important thing that we have to think about when we are disseminating our curriculum. When we were hit by the COVID-19 and the school suddenly closed, and we were all, trying to find wading through deep waters and trying to find out a way and means to how to reach out to our students, and especially related to academia. 1 week into it, and we suddenly realized only academics won't help. We have to take up other activities also, because a child cannot be taken up in isolation and in relation to academia only. So that's when we started integrating yoga and prayers and all kinds of things into it, activities, Mother Day celebrations, and so many things into it. But in all this scenario, we were realizing one thing, that we had forgotten that right now the child is actually being co-taught by the parent. So we woke up and we realized, we have to talk to the parents. And that's when we started a lot of, section-wise PTMs to reach out to the parent. Actually, we realized that the parent needs a lot of help at this time. The child used to be away at school for 6 to 8 hours and the parent was assured at home. But now the parent was handling the child 24/7 and had to take care of all these aspects. And moreover, we also were understanding this fact that probably many of the students were coming from families which were disturbed families. So we had to reach out. There we want to pull in the role of all the counselors, and we were working on that so that we can reach out to them. Because we realized that it is not just academics that is going to help. We have to see to it the child is emotionally comfortable also. We were talking, even the class teachers took it upon themselves to not only teach them, but just to talk to them in the initial 5 or 10 minutes of the class that they were handling. So these were many things that were taken up, activities were taken up in different manners. And the main thing that we, as I said, that we were working on was the communication that we were conducting with the parents. The second aspect that as an HOS I was realizing was my teachers, my faculty. I suddenly realized that they were working 24/7, and they were working at their house levels also, and they were working at the school levels also, and the school was not ending at 2:30 any longer. So they were really under pressure. So one thing that I did was to give them free hand. I gave them free hand so that we could realize and understand that they have to do things at their own pace. The curriculum can be completed at any time, but the point is, if it is done with a lot of understanding, if it is done with a lot of self-paced manner, then things can be carried out in a way which will be retained for a longer period of time. And the happiness curriculum does not come down, because I strongly believe that for happiness we don't need a curriculum. It comes from a happy teacher. If a teacher is happy, the students will be happy. Only if she is happy, then only the environment in the class can be transformed in a happy manner. So appreciations, awards, certificates, they were all going on during this time also, and that's a normal part of the school routine also. But at this time, it became all the more important because we were suddenly realizing that the creativity of the children have to be tapped. It was art integration, it was taking up art education, it was, taking up art competitions. There were many schools we were taking up inter-school competitions. We encourage our children to be a part of all of that so that the normal school feel was retained. And that was one thing that was helping us in all through. It was difficult. We had parents coming up and telling us they were having problem about screen timings. They were problem about how much the child can manage. We adjusted everywhere. We adjusted everywhere so that we could make everybody comfortable. And that is, I think, one of the most important thing as an educator we should do. And if we accommodate and we make things easy for everyone, it becomes more comfortable. And I'll end on a note that we believe in positive purpose. We believe in positive relationships. We believe in positive emotions. We believe in positive health, positive engagement, and positive accomplishment. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, ma'am. So, Lata ma'am, with your permission, we would like to stop here for another quick poll. Can we have the poll on our screen, please? I think there's some network problem with Lata ma'am's internet. So there we have the next question. Do we think teachers should be trained on increasing the happiness quotient of a class? What do you say, Amita ma'am? Yes, no, or what? If you can unmute the mic, ma'am.
Yeah, well, teachers, mostly the teachers who have come into the profession of educating, they are generally a happy tribe, I would say. However, there is no harm in keeping reminders for them. So I do feel that yes, trainings.
Great, great. Thank you so much, ma'am. So let us know what our audience have to say. So 90% of the attendees are saying that yes, there should be trainings, for the teachers on increasing the happiness quotient of a class. With this, we will move to our next speaker. We have Rita Singh, ma'am, with us. Ma'am, please, if you can throw some light on today's topic.
I think I don't really have to go around telling what emotional quotient and what emotional well-being or what mental well-being is all about, because I think the previous speakers have already set the context, and we all understand, we are all a firm believer of this, that this definitely needs to be addressed. And if it could be done through, I go back to the poll question, which was directed to me and which I missed because of not unmuting on time. Putting activities in the timetable, if we are talking about putting a period for something like this, or creating a slot for this, definitely a no. If we are talking about creating a marks and evaluation policy, definitely no. We are definitely wanting trainings and all for the teachers for this particular aspect, because we need to understand, as Mrs. Lata Vaidyanathan mentioned, that we have come from scholastic to co-scholastic, extracurricular to co-curricular, and how do we actually integrate all these things? The time is to integrate all this, not just in the curriculum, but in our classroom transactions. This is where the void is. Rather, there's a void everywhere. We have wonderful policies created by very learned policymakers. Everywhere the problem is in the implementation. That's what India's problem is. So I would probably be targeting, or I'll be speaking for next 4-5 minutes on the implementation process. A little thing about how we work in our group of schools, whether it is IT, or it is a general knowledge thing, or if it is a value education, or it is even environmental studies in the lower classes. Everything is being taught in the integrated manner. We don't have a slots for computer science periods. We do not have slots for, definitely not for life skills. We definitely not for value education. Everything is integrated. So what happens is a year prior to the session has to start. Sorry, 3 months prior to the year has to start. January to March, or so January to February, or December to February is the time when the entire activity planner, which is academic activity. When I say activity, I'm not talking about essay competition. I'm not talking about those competitions that we keep doing in our schools. It is a holistic thing. It is the entire curriculum that I'm talking about, whether what kind of topic will I choose for the debate competition that we are going to have, what kind of activities will we choose in my English lesson. Those English lesson, because so let me take an example of a stage 2. The English lesson of stage 2 will have element of environmental studies, because I do not have environmental studies being taught in my stage 2 as a separate timetable. So these kind of integrations that we have working on, not just for emotional well-being, I'm talking about even for happiness quotient, for IT skills, for general knowledge, everything is all integrated. This is how we work in our schools. Coming to emotional well-being curriculum. So curriculum has to be designed. We have to be aware what all we need to brief our students on, guide our students on, build those attitudes or the traits in our students, and how do we go about. So I'll just quickly take few examples which teachers, I'm assuming that most of the audience today is teachers, because it seems that principals are busy taking webinars and not really attending any. So for the teachers, I like to say a whole lot of activities that you can, I will take on the conventional classroom activities initially, and then a few examples in the online classes. For example, it's very important for a teacher to scaffold and support students. If it's a complex problem you're going to introduce, you start from a simpler problem, build in those concepts so that there's enough scaffolding and enough support that is given to a student. So every level academic IQ student or with the previous knowledge lacking student, everybody is feeling comfortable and at ease. And if you're a happy learner, you're definitely a better learner. So that is the concept that we all are very, very well aware of. For example, suppose there's a maths problem sum. When you take up a maths problem sum, when you're reading out that maths problem, read it like a story, miss out the figures, miss out those numbers. For example, Ram bought 100 mangoes, miss out that 100 for a class 1 child. Just started, you know what, Ram bought certain mangoes. First you build up like this. Then you can take examples like there's a lot of time required for reflection. A lot of meta-cognitive questions have to be put up to the students while they're practicing it, while they're in the classes. A small example, suppose there has to be human connection all the time, even it's a maths worksheet or even it's a say science worksheet. Last question can be something like that. How's my internal weather clock today? Then you can make few emoticons, cloudy, sunny, things like that. So what I'm trying to say is the human connect or wanting to stay connected with students, that has to be prime in your mind all the time. You could do critique through candies. For example, suppose there is a lot of projects students have done. How do you assess those projects? Line up all those projects, let the students distribute 2 candies to each student, and let the students go around every project and leave their candies onto those projects that they have liked. So maximum candies, and we start analysis. The teachers can start analyzing the projects and things like that. So then we have positive affirmation, which never goes, I mean, we all understand the importance of it. For example, in the class, we can have a marble, a jar kept with lots of marbles, and we say that, okay, this jar we have to shift the marble from this jar to another jar, as and when you feel that you've done a good deed of the day. Suppose the person, and you are not deciding for it, the child decides for himself. So there is a self-awareness building up while you're doing all these activities. I suppose have helped out my desk partner with the maths sum. I walk up and put a marble over there. So it says I'm analyzing my good deeds. So there's a self-awareness which is building. So there's very, very small such things. We keep talking about bad touch, good touch, and then the crisis happens, we start talking about showing CDs to children. I would say it's time to build up what is respectful touch. Let's have one-on-one people, students standing in front of them. There's no harm in, I mean, each one touches their hair, each one probably touches cheeks and things like that, and maybe a small hug. So that is where the respectful touch stops. So all these things, there are a whole lot of activities that we need to inbuild in our curriculum, but it has to be totally integrated with our lessons. It has to be happening in the classroom transactions. It is not a syllabus which is written down, given to parents, go study this. There's exam being taken, and that's my take on it. I've heard enough buzzes. I'll come back to more points later. Thank you.
I think I'm sorry I had to kind of, I got disconnected because of some power problems here, just for a few seconds. I missed some bit of what Rita said, but I think I finally get the gist. We now move on to Sanjay Jairath from the International Academy, the Pravasi International Academy in Nasik. And I think this whole multiple roles that the teachers play, from being an educator to being as Meera said, I think, to being a wellness counselor, to being a parenting, the whole multiple roles that the teachers are playing within the school to make sure that this happiness actually brews through their lives for active engagement and being a good citizen. Can we talk about that as well? Yes, Sanjay.
Good evening, everyone.
Sorry, Jared. Sanjay Jared.
Good evening, everyone. So, first of all, the weather in Nasik is very good right now. So we are
Right,
talking about
us.
the emotions. So let's have some smile on our face also. It's very cloudy, and we are expecting rains anytime soon. And that's how the weather has been since last about 4 or 5 days. So there can be few interruptions in between. We all are talking about the emotions and how the children should be groomed in this very aspect. But we are all forgetting on one point that why we need this. What is the significance of this? Suddenly, because of this COVID, now this emotional angle is becoming very, very important. But till date, I found in very few institutes, whether this is the academic institutes or the corporates, they never used to talk about the emotions. At least now we have got this chance to talk about the emotions. So this was something like a robotic behavior or the manual behavior or the human behavior, which we need to understand first. See, the point is emotionally strengthen the student, but the point is why is it necessary? If we look at the life cycle of the human being, we find that the way the seed is being sown, so the tree will be. When the child comes first time to the primary sections in most of the schools, it is in the age of say 3 to 4 years. And we all know that by the time the child is around 7 to 8 years, his brain has been totally groomed and the things have been put in the schemas in the mind. So we are already done 50% of the work at home. So what we are getting at the age of 3 and 4 is that half of the behavioral aspects has already been set. So toughest part is not to how to handle the child in the classroom or how to teach him or how to take him to the teaching learning process, but how to unlearn the things which has been got into his mind and how to make his mind function again so that he becomes emotionally strong. And we always have this habit of linking the emotions with the smiling faces, but what about the tears? How many of us have really understood the concept of tears in our eyes? Sometimes I believe that the tear says much more than what the smile says. And we normally make our students hide the tears. We say ki rona mat. घर में मम्मी ने बोला कि रोना मत, always keep the laughing face, but the point is कि without the tears you don't understand the concept of smile. Number one. Point number two, see what happens when the child becomes an adult and he goes to any profession in his life. People are not what the knowledge level you have attained, but how much adaptable and flexible you are to work in a society or in a particular organization. And all these things can be attained only if you are set so that you are becoming very, very flexible to work in any organization or any culture or in any environment. And for that thing, the emotions are very, very important. If you're not having a positive set of emotions or the way to control the negative set of emotions, it will be very, very difficult. Can you really put this into a timetable? I think it's really not possible. You can say, okay, this period will be for the emotions and this period will be for the subject which are non-emotional. There is no subject which is non-emotional. All the subjects carry the emotions. Only thing is that whether your teachers, somebody was talking about training of the tutors, but at the age of say 40, 45, when most of the teachers are becoming so-called the professional teachers, they have to first unlearn few things. Not ready to unlearn the thing, they will not be in a position to learn new things. And if you're not learning new things, then you will not be again in a position to tackle the emotional aspects of the student. See, emotions can carry the various aspects around it. It is not only about how you are grooming yourself, but suppose a child grows. Let's take an example of being in a particular society. When a girl grows, she reaches the age of 25, 26, and the parents suddenly start asking कि अब आपको आगे life में क्या करना है? Whether you want to become a professional or you want to get married. That is the time when if you look at the face of that girl, then you can realize what emotions she carries with herself. Has those emotions been taught in the school, or has those emotions been groomed in her from the family side or from the schooling side or from the society side? So it is not only about the schooling where you can teach the emotions part or how to handle the emotions, but it is other, I think the responsibility of all the stakeholders who are into the education system, which starts right from the teachers in the classroom, which starts from the schooling, which starts from the government side, and which starts from the society side. So as a whole, if we do not take care of these small things, you have to handle both the parts, the happy emotions as well as the sad emotions. I think that things will not fall in the same spectrum. So I really believe for the tutors to take the care of emotions, they have to first unlearn few things. They have to take out that seriousness, because we always teach that the academics is a very serious matter. We never say that academics is a continuous matter. If you take the education as a continuous process in your life, okay, I can learn at the age of 40, 45, 50. I don't think you will be able to bring the emotional quotient in the schooling system. So that is the point of view from my side. I hope you all will agree, and let's see how as a team we can really take this part forward and how we can implement that in the schooling system, right from the, you can say, nursery level up to the institutes of higher learning, up to say where the teacher, students are going for the PhDs also. That's it from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sanjay. I know this is, yes. Thank you, Sanjay, very much for a very interesting aspect of how there is a flip side to everything, the learning and the unlearning. So I think it's very important to focus on that. And now I think our last speaker for the day, Sunanda Sandhir from Pathways Noida. Sunanda, I think the only thing that's come to my mind is with the shifting roles and the engaging responsibilities of teachers more than ever before, what is our responses and how have these been sharpened during these COVID times?
Sunanda ma'am, if you can unmute, please.
So sorry.
Unmute.
Thank you, Mrs. Vaidyanathan. It's been great to hear all the speakers, and I'm so happy that we have started thinking about student well-being, which is so important. I am sorry that it has happened during COVID times. For me, I feel it's a very important aspect, and I'll speak from the students' side, because we know that the success of young people in school and beyond is totally linked to healthy social and emotional development. We have to understand that students who have a sense of belonging and purpose, who can work well with their classmates and peers to solve problems, who can plan and set goals, and who can persevere through challenges, in addition to being good at academics, are more likely to reach their full potential. All of us have agreed to this. We have also agreed to, if I put it together, this is something which Mrs. Vaidyanathan also said, that all the domains, that major domains of human development, social, emotional, cognitive, linguistic, academic, are all deeply intertwined in the brain and in behavior. All are central to learning. Strengths or weaknesses in one area foster or impede development in others. Each carries aspects of others. So before I answer Mrs. Vaidyanathan's question, I thought that we've all spoken about and have agreed that it is required. But how do we do it? We have to understand that social and emotional development comprises of specific skills and competencies that students need in order to set their goals or manage behavior and build relationships and processes and remember information. I'll speak about, so what are these competencies? And I've divided these in 5 areas, and I'll share what we are doing in school to give you certain examples and connect them with how these are being also done during the COVID times. So one is self-awareness. This is one of the competency that we need to develop in the children, which is that you get them to recognize your own emotions, your thoughts, and your influence on your behavior. And how do we do it? We do it through reflection, and we do it through mindfulness. I'll give you, we have regular sessions of mindfulness in our school. Every day, at least twice or thrice in a week, and many times even before their assessments, the children are taught how to do mindfulness, how to meditate, how to go back on their emotions and look at their emotions on what they are feeling at that point. Reflections are important. It's integrated both on their positive actions or on their negative actions. And I'll give you an example. As principals, all of us, we have our system in our schools where children make mistakes, and we are in a hurry to give them punitive measures. We should give them, I'm not saying. But what happens to it is that the children, I look after an age group, which is adolescents, where the children are exploring themselves, and they do end up making mistakes. But what I tell them is that any action, we have to teach them is that through reflections, that actions have consequences, and they have to learn how to make the right choices. I break it out for them. All my teachers or all our councils help them to think that you are getting a consequence for your action, not for you as a person. And that is done through the reflections. That's an important aspect to teach them to be self-aware and be aware of the choices that they are making. Self-management, that's another very important component. Regulating your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors in different situations. Again, reflection. And being able to achieve personal and academic goals. There's a lot of emphasis on goal setting by the self-directed learning student agency. These are very, very important through which we get them to set their goals. Social awareness. That's a very important, and we don't discuss it in school. Taking the perspective of empathizing with others of their diverse background. What happened in Chicago? How many of we discussed that from different perspectives? Or, you know, a very common thing in India, which is very cultural to India, boys should not cry, you know, and this is being discussed in classes. Why should boys cry? Why is it crying is only limited to specific gender? You know, getting them to discuss, learning to discuss their feelings on subjects like culture, diversity. These help the students to develop empathy and grit. Relationship skills through group work, establishing and maintaining constructive relationships, and group work in every curriculum. When you're teaching them through curricula, your academics, you teach them through group work. Establishing, maintaining constructive relationships with diverse individuals and groups is something that you need to teach them. Responsible decision making, making ethical and respectful choices, which I spoke about earlier also, about personal behavior and social interactions. These are the things, these are the competencies that we need to develop, and we do develop. Our values at our pathways for a year were respect, responsibility, resilience, and teamwork. And we pick up each value every month, 2 months, to teach that specifically to the students in class. These are the competencies that you need to develop in the student. We do that through multiple things. You know, the students are the most important people in our school, and we need to give that response, teach them to develop those. So for example, in our school, when we do need to give them to build relationships. So when we are moving them to, when they move to the next class, there are sections which are the students they change their sections. So the way to do that is we ask students for choices. We tell them, give us the names of your 5 friends. We'll surely give you one. So these are different kind of things that we do. Community service, that doesn't mean only donating, but working with others, working for your peers, are some of the very good examples that we do in our school to build up their student well-being. I think I've got enough buzzers. There's a lot I can talk on this topic to share with you, that it's so important, but how to do it is something we all agree. But I think what we need to think about is, how do you want to go about it? What are the ways that you develop these competencies among your children? That's very, very important. Thank you.
Thank you, Sunanda. Wonderful. It's lovely to hear that. And I think we will sum up. When we sum up, we'll talk about how we are shifting from content to competency. So that's really, really nice. And I think I now want to hand it over to the, I think to Gopal Kishan, right? For dealing with the question answers, yeah, before we sum up.
Ma'am, I'll request you to sum up the session first, then we'll move to the Q&A round.
All right, fine. So I think I really need to thank, and if you look at the panel, there is more than a century of experience that has come through. I think between all of us, we are wiser, and our shifting roles have become more prominent during this period of COVID. You know, our shifting roles, moving from being a teacher in the class to being a facilitator, and also being a counselor, being bothering about their wellness a little more in focus. So each little shift that is happening to ourselves is pointing out at one thing, is that if we have that child's integral coaching spirits around us, and if you're all focused on the well-being, everything else will fall in place. And for doing that, it doesn't need to have an independent curriculum style, or it doesn't have to be an independent period, or just something like that. It has all to be knitted well within the classroom structures, within every teacher's environment, within the subjects that she teaches academically, and make sure that use of each one of those is very critical in order to make sure that, you know, the child's well-being is attended to. Whether it is swinging of moods, whether it is age related, whether it is family related, whether it is subject related, whether it is success or failure related, whether it is achievement and or lack of it, whether it is goal setting or lack of it, and how to bring out within the children and have a plan in the school with the teachers, with the purpose, and focusing on the emotional well-being, so that we know for sure that exactly whatever transactions are happening academically is also a part of their, is a more important part of their learning, because centrality is about the resilience that they carry, about their responses that they will, because these difficulty times actually are teaching us and them a lot more. And together with the stakeholders, it's very critical. And as we talked about, and as we walk through this entire thing, how learning is important and unlearning is important, and how relearning is important. All of that has also come into the focus through some of our speakers. And I think this learning continuum is critical for all of us. We don't know it all. Each time tells us how we are going to respond to it. Therefore, this readiness to respond and happily respond, be content with all our little movements and steps from an institution point of view, from a home point of view, from making sure that between the 2 or 3 agencies that run the lives of our children, they are in happy space. And of course, finally, really looking at the well-being with the additional focus of whether, what are those competencies, and once we know that these competencies are there, whether it is of self-awareness, whether it is social awareness, whether it is emotional awareness, whether it is responsible decision-making or relationships, and all of that which pass through various age groups. We are not talking of any one age group. We are talking of right from kindergarten through our adult children. And when we look at all of them, none of, you know, they're not even in their voting age, but they all have opinions. Do we factor that in? Do we give them space and talk with them and not talk to them? Very often children say, when do you ever talk with us? You talk down, you're so directorial. So I think all that space needs to be understood. It's very important to understand through this journey, through these difficult times, that we have changed somewhere in order to bring happiness around us. Because it's important, as someone said, to understand the joys and the tears, so that we know that the complete well-being of an individual, of child in particular, we are doing our best. And I think I want to really wind up by saying that I think each one of you that I heard today is, as Rita, I like to repeat, hopes for the future. The leadership lies in each one of your shoulders and ours together. And I think as we move the wheels of education in this country, understanding it globally and locally, and responding to all our situations with the grit and confidence that each teacher needs to have, and the deeper understanding of it all, will make this country a happy place, and hopefully the children and schools happier. Thank you, each one of you. And now we are ready for questions.
Thank you so much, Lata ma'am and all the panelists. Now is the time for the Q&A session, and we'll take 2 questions from the attendees, and we'll unmute them and request them to ask their question. Attendees, if you want to ask the question, then you can please raise your hand. There's a icon on your screen. You just click on that if you want to ask the question. Please raise your hand. So we have Madhu Negi ma'am with us. She has raised her hand. She wants to ask a question. If we can please unmute Madhu Negi ma'am.
Am I audible?
Madhu ma'am, please.
Yeah, hi, good evening, all the respected dignitaries. My question is, we all are talking about well-being and the happiness of a child. If teacher is not happy and teacher is not distressed, how can she deliver a happy teaching?
And ma'am, Madhu ma'am, your question is to, like, whom you want to answer the question?
Anyone, because we all were talking about well-being of a child.
I'll just talk about a policy that we have in our school, probably that
Sure,
will
ma'am.
help Madhu understand the situation. You very rightly brought out, if the teachers are not happy, If the atmosphere is not happy, things does not happen. The way
Correct.
you want it. The productivity is definitely compromised. I'll just give you one example, one policy of Indirapuram group of institutions. In my 12 years of principalship, I haven't refused a single leave. Not a single leave has been denied to the teacher. This is a simple policy that the leave is the day you want a leave, it will be granted. The only condition is you got to take a prior permission. Of course, emergencies are always paid attention to. That's not a thing. What I'm trying to say is every teacher knows that whenever I'm in a need of a leave, it will never be denied. So there is an automatically sense of responsibility from a teacher towards the institution that I'll only ask for leave. It's really, really important. So these are certain policies that are put in place. And then, of course, there can be 101 other ways to have, every 2 months, it can be a small party. It could be an outing. Yes, you're very right that teacher engagement is very, very important, not just in the classrooms or the academic meetings, also for chill out meetings and chilled out parties. That is what we do in our group.
I would like to add something there for Madhu ma'am. I mean, I personally believe that if the setup of our organization is democratic in nature and decisions in the organization are taken with a lot of discussions among the stakeholders, that gives a lot of responsibility to every teacher in the school.
Participatory leadership definitely is one of the very, very important things.
So that's one thing I wanted to add there.
Thank you so much, Rashmi ma'am. Now we'll take another question, and if we can please unmute Manjeet Kaur ma'am. Can we please unmute Manjeet Kaur ma'am and invite her to ask the question? Speakers, as we are running short of time, I request you to answer the question in 60 seconds, as we'll be taking some more questions after this. Manjeet ma'am, if you want to, if you can please share your question. Are you there, Manjeet ma'am?
Yes, to unmute herself.
I think there is some technical problem. Let us invite our next attendee. Can we unmute Ravinder Grewal ma'am, please? Can we have the question from Ravinder Grewal ma'am? Ravinder ma'am, you can please unmute yourself and ask the question. I think we are facing some technical problem. Okay, so there are a lot of other questions in the Q&A box. I'll now start taking questions from there. And my first question is, what according to you can schools do more to promote mental health of students? And the question is to Amita ma'am and then Sanjay sir. Amita ma'am, please, you have got 60 seconds to answer, share your views. Ma'am, please unmute yourself.
To promote emotional well-being among students, very simple things. Provide them with exercises such as fun, some fun games. Just ask the primary group to maybe make a paper plane, and then have a little fun among the peer group. Ask the elders, the older students, the senior group maybe to go and play a game of football. Have you ever seen children who are playing a game get into any stress? No, because they're always focused on the game. So provide them those chances.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Sanjay sir, to you, please.
See, for me, it is the involvement, one-to-one involvement, which is very, very important. We can give them n number of activities. We can give them n number of curricula also to study. But if the tutors are not involved with the student, things cannot be achieved. It is not only about whether it is structured or unstructured, but can we take them outside the boundary wall of the classroom and develop that connect, which is missing nowadays. It is not because it is a connect between the tutors and the children, because see, the tutors are also parents at home. So do they have the connect with their own children? If they doesn't have the connect with their own children, believe me, you provide them any n number of activities, they cannot develop the connect with the children of others also. So that connect is missing nowadays, which I feel. So let's start spending more time with each other in the physical format, and let's start spending time with the kids in an informal manner. I hope once the connect is developed, they will start sharing the things with you. And once the children will start sharing the things with you, you will try to understand, okay, where we are going wrong.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sanjay sir. And the next question is to Sunanda ma'am and Lata ma'am. And the question is, what is more important? Intelligence question or happiness question, and why? Sunanda ma'am, please.
I definitely, we are talking about happiness quotient, and definitely happiness quotient is absolutely important. And because unless I feel, I mean, intelligence is something, if you study the brain, it can be developed. It's not something you have to find your own success. So if you're happy, you will be able to find your own success. So I feel that definitely happiness quotient is very, very important.
Lata ma'am, please. If you can unmute yourself, Lata ma'am.
So, yeah, I think she has really said the right thing, because if there is happiness, the intelligence will take care of itself. The most important thing about understanding happiness in this space is that we have to allow children to express themselves and not be judgmental. Once you drop judgment and allow them the free space, that is creating the environment for happiness. You know, very often we say we need to do this, we need to do this. The whole issue is, how do we do this? So I think drop judgments, allow them to make mistakes. If that happiness, if they are happy, then they will be not scared. Fear has no place in learning and happiness.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. So my next question is to Asha ma'am and Rita ma'am. And the question is, students are very hyper these days. How single teacher over 45 students can keep positive and calm, peaceful response? Rita ma'am, please.
Unmute. Unmute.
Ma'am, please unmute.
Unmute. Unmute.
Rita ma'am, if you can please
Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah, we have all been talking about meditation techniques and things like that. We don't really have to go full-fledged on that. However, a quick, small breathing techniques always help. Or just a kind of little, I mean, there are little hand gestures I've been working on. I mean, I'm not talking about classroom, I'm talking about school assemblies. When I go on mic and suppose there is some joke that has been cracked, or there is some news of the school that has been shared, when people are, students are, I mean, going really, they're bubbling at that point of time. There are certain hand gestures that I had built up. I would just kind of raise my hands to the full, and I used to gently bring it down, and with that I would also speak something, and my own volume of the my own speech used to be high, and then slightly it used to come down and things like that. There's small tricks which were there. I mean, students got habitual of it, and it worked very well for me as a principal. And for teachers, I would say breathing techniques, just pausing and kind of creating certain school rules, the classroom rules or something like that helps.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Asha ma'am, over to you.
Yeah, here I would like to tell you, that's a wavelength which we need to connect with our students. It's not a number that matters. It's about your wavelength, about the energy with which you connect with your students. As a teacher, because I was a teacher, so I know I had been handling classes where I was teaching 2 sections at a time. It was only when you're passionate, what I was telling in my talk also, when you love something, if a teacher loves her job, it's not a job, it's a passion, it's her involvement. It may be 45, it may be 100 students in front of you. They will get connected. It's only about how you deal, how you enter the class. There may be 100 problems back, but don't take those problems in front of the class, because those 40 minds are sitting there to find something new from you. They want that love from you. So please feel connected to the students and be passionate about what you do. It should not be a pressure on a teacher to enter a class. It should be the love to meet these young faces every day. That's what I always tell my teachers.
Great.
And practice that.
Great. Thank you so much, ma'am. So here we have our last question, and I would want Rashmi ma'am and Rajkumar sir to answer the question. And the question is, how can students be identified who need help to come out of depression, as they do not open and approach anyone? Rashmi ma'am, please.
I think when a teacher goes into a class, she always notices all the children who are sitting there. and any deviant behavior is noticed by the teacher instantly. So if a teacher notices a child who's quiet or who's depressed or who's not talking or mixing along with others, she can always find out the reason for it, get the other students of the class to collaborate with the child, help out, put in any kind of remedial measures that are needed. And if this matter is serious, the child can put into a counseling session with the counselor of the school. So basically it's a teacher, and I think a pat on the back, pat on the cheek of COVID that won't be allowed, but that I think a teacher can make that difference, and teacher will always child who's not normal in the class. Thank you.
Hello. Yes, I think we are having the mentor and the budding system. So if you can say students, we are having the budding system. So it means they disclose, you can say, their problems, they share their problems. If you're having the mentor system, it means 5 to 10 students are, you can send, you can say, one teacher. So teacher is knowing about, you can say, the complete the family background, and you can say the general about, you can say, child is also there. So if any change in the abnormal change in the child's behavior is there, so it means the mentor, you can say, can came to know. And I think the remedy is very simple one, with the help of the counselor, with the help of, you can say, the parents, with the help of the doctor, we are supposed to go for that. But to recognize it means we have to give them, you can, space with the help of the budding system, or we are with the help of, you can say, the mentor system. That is to be essential one, to recognize, to find, you can say, the abnormality, you can say, the change in the behavior is there. So we can find it out.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you all the panelists. What a wonderful session. I would like to conclude by saying that children who are in good state of emotional well-being have higher odds of growing into adults who are happy, confident, and enjoy healthy lifestyles, consequently contributing towards a better society and improving its overall well-being. Now I'm sharing a link in the chat box, and I request all the panelists and attendees to fill that and give us their valuable feedback. So the link is there in the chat box. You can open that and please give your feedback. I would also like to thank all the panelists for taking out time and making this an enriching discussion. It was an honor to have you all here with us. Thank you, Lata ma'am. Thank you, Amita ma'am. Thank you, Rita ma'am. Thank you, Sanjay sir. Thank you, Sunanda ma'am. Thank you, Rashmi ma'am. Thank you, Asha ma'am. And thank you, Rajkumar sir.
I think we all go back enriched.
Yeah, I told you that. I told you in the beginning that I will be the richest, and I'm sure all of us are really, really thankful to everybody.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Special thanks to Mr. Gopal Krishnan.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I would also like to thank the audience for joining us. Please follow us on our Facebook page to know more about the details of the upcoming webinars. The next webinar is scheduled on Friday, 19th June, 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Do not forget to register yourself. Thank you once again. Wish you all a great evening. Stay home, stay safe, and stay connected.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lata ma'am.
Thank you, girls. Thank you. Wonderful. I think everybody is younger to me. So God bless all of you. Stay home, stay safe.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you and safe.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
To all the panelists. Thank you.